This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Pat co-hosts Three Man Front on WJOX in Birmingham. Pat, thanks for joining us this morning. I know it's a lot.
Good morning.
It's a lot to process, but kind of what has your thoughts been these last couple days as the information has continued to come out involving Brandon Miller?
Well, I don't mean to sound insensitive about the situation because it goes without saying. It's just like what Chuck just said. I mean, it's a horrible situation. Your hearts go out to the family, just like you mentioned about Joseph Goodman's article. Glad that he pointed out the family side of this. This is not about basketball. This is not about a possible Final Four team, best player in the SEC, so on and so forth. It is about the family first and foremost. But you asked me what my feelings are about this. Obviously, covering this from the moment that it happened on that terrible January early Sunday morning till up until today. You know, it's a situation where a lot of us were surprised that Miller and also Jaden Bradley, who was there on the scene, of course, you don't hear Bradley's name mentioned a lot, two of the Bama players, did not at least have although the legal side of it did not involve Miller and Bradley outside of just interviewing them as witnesses from the get-go. We were surprised that at least those guys did not take a step away from the team, or the team, I don't know, maybe suspend them, whatever the case may be. We were surprised that didn't happen at the beginning, but up until that hearing on Tuesday, we had always heard behind the scenes that everybody was being interviewed from obviously you were there at the scene, what took place, things of that nature, but just like what Greg Burns said, until that hearing came out, a lot of us did not understand the text messages and the other things that went on with this. So needless to say, it's a topic where in this state of Alabama, you have Auburn. It doesn't matter what the situation is. You'll have the Alabama fans rally to the Alabama side. You'll have the Auburn fans obviously go after Alabama fans. So it's both cases in this state where it is a checks and balances a lot of times, but anytime that one can poke at the other, they're going to take advantage of it, and that's kind of what we've seen this week. You've seen the forces rally the wagons behind Alabama in regards to Nate Oates and to Brandon Miller. Did not break the law technically, ethically, or whatever else you want to say. So it's not a black and white issue, but as you guys know, anytime you have something like this, the fans are going to turn it into that, and that's why it was important that Joseph Goodman pointed out the familial side and what's really happening to people's lives.
Pat, the conversation here in Arkansas and just talking amongst friends and listeners and whatever, that always comes back to how is Brandon Miller not an accomplice or part of it on the criminal charges side, seeing how he drove the weapon in a vehicle to the scene of the crime. Help us understand better why the prosecutors and or grand jury have not moved forward with any kind of criminal charge with Brandon Miller.
That's a great question. And the people that we talked to on JOX, and we've talked to numerous attorneys and former district attorneys and things of that nature. So I want to point out, because obviously they're not talking at all in Tuscaloosa in regards to this case. But the people that we talked to, whether it's the defense attorneys, prosecuting attorneys, they all say the same thing that the Tuscaloosa DA said on Tuesday, that there was nothing that they could charge him with. Again, they keep telling us it's very difficult to prove that there's enough evidence to establish that Miller had any specific intent, because that's what you have to prove in regards to participating in the act that ultimately led to the shooting. Those attorneys also point out to us that, bad judgment or poor choices don't always add up to the commission of a crime. And so right now, all indications are that there is no way to prove that Brandon Miller had the intent of returning the gun. I mean, you heard what on the podcast this week, what Greg Burns said in regards to, there was nothing in which Miller knew about the gun, or he did not even hand the gun off. He didn't even know that it was in the backseat of the car when he arrived back to pick up Darius Miles. So there's a lot of gray area here, but most attorneys will tell you right now, just letter of the law, there is not enough to charge him with intent to distribute that weapon, which ultimately was used in a murder.
Pat, Chuck, You know, you've been around a lot of programs, and I have too, and there's a tendency to live inside that bubble. You know, we all surround ourselves with like-minded people, and I wonder if within that bubble at the University of Alabama, is there an understanding of how the outside world views them right now?
No question about it.
Do you really think there? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is there any shame?
I will tell you this: when Nate Oates did his press conference on Tuesday, there were many people around the state, and these are like hardcore Alabama alums and people that support the program. They had serious reservations about what was going on at Alabama in regards to Greg Burns' handling of the situation, the athletics director. What the heck Nate Oates was out there saying. How could Alabama, as you guys mentioned, it's ridiculous to even talk about, but people are like, why is he even mentioning this? Why does he not have a prepared statement, things of that nature? But just like any time with the situation, whether it's an NCAA situation here in Alabama back in the day, Chuck, you remember Auburn and Alabama was always in some kind of NCAA trouble. They rally the troops, and they pretty much say, you know, we're going to do what we do. Think back to when Cam Newton in 2010 at Auburn. You know, they were like, to hell with everybody else in the conference. We're going to play Cam Newton. We're going to do what we do. Obviously, this is a much serious situation because you're talking about somebody's loss of life. But Alabama, they have been steadfast in regards to talking with not only the president of the university, dealing with the attorneys at the university, and they have been very strong-willed in regards to the fact that he did not commit a crime. It looks awful. It's terrible. But at the end of the day, they really don't have anything in regards to letting him walk away because they said that he has been upfront from the get-go in regards to this. Matter of fact, Miller has even provided things that the police haven't even asked for yet. Now, ultimately, probably the police would have been able to get it with a court order, but from dashboard camera to obviously handing over his cell phone, all the type things that has been used in this investigation, that's what Alabama has used to say, well, he has cooperated fully. He's a witness in a crime. He is not one that perpetuated the situation.
Well, you know, when you are on the outside looking in, and you hear all the debate about whether or not he should have been charged, the legalese, every lawyer says this, they have to understand that the outside world looks at this as, well, if he hadn't taken the gun over there, she'd probably still be alive. I mean, forget all the legalese. Forget whether he's going to be charged. I mean, if you want to hide behind the cloak of legalese, I guess they can, but the outside world looks at this with just a common sense perspective. It's like, if he doesn't take the gun over there, she doesn't get shot.
That I can't argue with you, Chuck. Can't argue with you at all. The other side of that, they will tell you that, first off, he didn't realize that the gun was left in the backseat of the car. And so with the text messages where Darius Miles is sending to Miller saying, hey, I need to be picked back up, his attorneys, Brandon Miller's attorneys, is saying that, yes, those text messages came in, but he did not see that last part about I need the gun. Earlier in the night, the text messages were, hey, I need to be picked up. And so, once again, they cannot prove intent. So, Chuck, I'm with you 100%. I mean, this is as bad as it could look, period. And some of the handling of this and why things are happening the way they are, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, that's what we debate every single day on our radio station, exactly what happened, how it happened, and moving forward, who is ultimately going to pay the price outside those gentlemen that's in jail right now that's potentially going to go down for murder.
My understanding of Alabama law, which is, as you would imagine, extremely limited, is that the key word in all this is intent, that you have to prove intent if you're going to prosecute in this case.
No question. And that's what every attorney that we have talked to, and it's very difficult to prove intent. Matter of fact, there was an attorney that we were talking to off the air, and he gave us numerous examples of situations and where it's just very difficult to say, okay, well, he intended to bring this and to participate in the event. And at the end of the day, that's where I think Brandon Miller's attorneys, I think that's where Brandon Miller, and that's where Alabama is siding with Miller right now, because there has been absolutely no evidence in regards to Miller knowing that he was driving the car back for the intent for him to get the gun or his friend to get the gun and to use it on the female.
So for those that want to say, and you may have just answered it right there, that even though it may not be illegal, it can still be wrong.
Sure.
The stance that Alabama's taken in supporting Brandon Miller, surely they can understand, it's kind of like Chuck was pointing to, why the outside world would view this as an unbelievable decision of following and supporting this player. Even though it might not be illegal by law, it could still be wrong in many other ways, Pat.
No, there's no question about it, guys. 100% agree with you. And when you look at the situation from the get-go, many of us kind of scratched our heads because I don't know if you guys remember, but the very first week that this took place, Nate Oates made a statement about reaching out to Ray Lewis in regards to getting his advice on some situations. That was before they went to Vanderbilt and played the first game after this terrible tragedy took place. And a lot of us kind of scratched our head going, why in the world are you calling Ray Lewis? And there's a lot of other people in the world that would be calling for advice, but we kind of understood because everything that happened with Ray Lewis and the way he handled things, we kind of understood that. But then when Nate Oates comes out and says what he did, wrong spot at the wrong time, we all just said, well, we shouldn't be surprised by that statement because, I mean, if you're calling Ray Lewis to get advice on how to handle a situation as terrible as this is, my goodness, I mean, what are you saying here? And then obviously he walked those comments back a few hours later and then said what he did after the game against South Carolina. But listen, guys, we are all kind of struggling with this because there is the loss of life. Then you also have the situation where you have people rallying behind one cause or another because, as we all know, people are going to make whatever judgments they are based on their allegiances, and whether it's right or wrong, unfortunately, that's the kind of society we live in now.
Pat, I know you've been busy this week, so I really appreciate you making some time for us this morning. Again, Pat Smith, WJOX, co-host of Three Man Front. Pat, enjoy your weekend, man. I know you'll probably have another show today filled with questions, and we appreciate you making some time for us this morning.
Hey, guys, always talk to you guys. Hopefully next time we visit, it'll be about some happier times in either basketball, baseball, or even football down the road.
Sounds good, man. See you, Pat.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts.